Hello and welcome to this presentation related to an introduction to the Harvard style of referencing. This presentation is aimed particularly at technician engineering students, helping them with formal in-text citation and creation of reference lists associated with their assignments in project work. In other words, it's a getting you going presentation with the Harvard style of referencing. It is hoped after viewing this presentation you'll have an awareness of the Harvard style and then be able to undertake your own in-depth research and so advance your knowledge and understanding of this style of referencing. So let's get going. Here's a presentation overview of the Harvard referencing style. Commence with an introduction. Here we outline Harvard referencing and various information sources we might want to reference. I very briefly outline the use of an inbuilt bibliographic package within Microsoft Word, something I would strongly encourage you to become familiar with and to use when inserting citations and creating lists of references within your various documents. I just include a few basic hints and screenshots of how to use the inbuilt bibliographic package. We'll then briefly introduce in-text citations and reference lists. The next section we consider the formatting of in-text citations. For example, how to use the author or authors' names, dating source dates, and when required, page numbering. We then consider formatting of the sources in the reference list, usually at the rear of the documents we're producing. Sources include books, reports, journal articles, websites, etc. And finally, we conclude with some citation examples and illustrations. These relate to various articles that have been published and just show how Harvard-style citations are used within the various extracts. And here are the approximate start times related to the various sections contained within this presentation to hopefully aid your ease of access through the presentation. But please note these are only approximate start times, usually rounded to the nearest minute. Harvard referencing and introduction. Let's overview Harvard referencing. So Harvard is a referencing style primarily used in higher education and academic research to cite information sources listed within a document being written. So typical sources of information often referred to within documents that we're going to produce can include any of the following. So journal articles, usually peer-reviewed journal articles, and these can be printed or online, reports, books, book chapters, theses or dissertations, conference proceedings, government publications, newspaper articles, print magazines, dictionary entries, encyclopedias, websites, ebooks, PDF files, blogs, emails, personal communications. And as you can see, there are many more stated here. And indeed, this is not a definitive listing. I've also referred to monographs within some of my research. These relate to detailed research into various specialized topic areas. So you may find other information sources you want to refer to within your documents. Modern day word processors have inbuilt bibliographic packages, and these packages can be used for in-text citation and creating a list of references, usually at the rear of your document. I'm just showing here an extract from Microsoft Word within this tab here, which actually states references. These are the options you have related to referencing. So we're able to manage sources. That's essentially the database where we can enter the information related to our various reference sources, journal articles, reports, books, etc. We can choose an appropriate style. Harvard style is selected here. Then we can use the insert citation function to actually produce in-text citations as required. And the bibliography option here allows us to insert the list of references at the end of our document. If you only have one or two references to cite within your document, then maybe using the inbuilt bibliographic package is not particularly useful. But certainly if you have 5 or more, I would strongly encourage you to start to develop your familiarity with bibliographic packages. You can buy external packages that link to word processors Some of these are free downloads and some of them are quite expensive packages to buy, but they all essentially provide similar facilities. For our technician level of study, the inbuilt bibliographic packages within our word processing package is more than sufficient. I can very briefly show you on the screen here. If I click on Manage Sources, this is my master list of sources available within my bibliographic package here. And on the right hand side, I have the current list of sources extracted from the master list that are being used in this particular document I'm currently compiling. You can see the bibliographic entries at the bottom of the slide showing you how the package is automatically formatting these various sources for me. If I want to insert a new information source, I'm in my Reference tab, click on Manage Sources, click on New, and then I can choose from the drop-down menu whether I want a book section, a journal article, a report, a website, a document from a website, an electronic source, etc., etc. And I just simply fill in the various details here on the Create Source slide. Here's a journal article entry shown fully completed with the authors named. Notice you can put a corporate author if that's applicable. This is not the case here though. Then we have the title of the document, so that's your journal article here, the journal name, the year it was published, the page numbers of the article within the volume and within the issue. So in this particular package, it's relatively simple to create a new information source and edit it if you need to. Obviously, this is just one particular package. All packages have a slightly different interface, but the generic use of the package should be quite similar. And if I want to insert a citation at this location here, I simply click on the References tab, Insert Citation, find my information source from my database, the Wolf report here, and click on the source. That automatically puts the citation where my cursor was located. In this particular form of citation, where the author and the date of publication is in the parentheses, is sometimes referred to as a non-integral citation. If I now want to insert a citation at this location here where my cursor is shown, again I insert citation, find my source, Wolf, and the citation is again inserted. Now because I've already mentioned the Wolf report within the text, I need to remove the author Wolf from the parentheses. So I simply right mouse click on the citation, I edit my citation, and in the edit citation box I simply suppress the author. OK. So now the author Wolf has been removed from the parentheses. This citation is now known as an integral citation. So final illustration. Now I want to insert a citation here where my cursor is located. So insert citation. This time I'm going to choose the journal article from Carter and Bathmaker. So click on that source and it inserts both of the authors' names in the parentheses. In this particular case, I also want to add a page number because I'm referring to a specific quote, the past culture shown here. So I want to state the page number of the journal article where this quote can be found. So now I simply right mouse click on the citation, again edit the citation, and this time I add the page number, this is page number 2 of this article, and I say OK to that. This now produces a non-integral citation stating both authors, the date of publication, and now the page number within the parentheses. So that's just a brief overview of how to use the insert citation function and to modify the citation using this inbuilt bibliographic package. If I now want to insert the references at the back of the document, click on the Reference tab, Bibliography, click on References, And there are the three information sources used in this document thus far. Sometimes it's preferable to actually format them to make them easier to read. So highlight them and modify the paragraph setting. So there's the three sources now slightly formatted to make them easier to read. Such formatting is particularly useful if you have many sources within your reference list. And just for interest, this document relates to a draft journal article currently being compiled. And if we insert a list of references for this document, so as you can see, the bibliographic package has scanned the entire document and now produced this listing of references, all in alphabetical order. I've actually formatted these to make them slightly easier to read, but you can see the extensive list of information sources in this document and why it is absolutely essential to use a bibliographic package to generate your list of references. And still the references come. And if we do add any further references to our database, we'll quite easily be able to update the list of references, and any new reference source will be automatically inserted to this listing in alphabetical order. Overview of Harvard Referencing Guide continued. The Harvard style of referencing is often used in such disciplines as biology, chemistry, business studies, environmental studies, economics, education, linguistics, health and social sciences, arts and humanities. Now note for engineering and science, generally other citation styles tend to be used, such as APA, an author date style, the IEEE style, it's a numbered style, and still further styles are available, which are similar, and all such styles can be used within, for example, technical engineering journal articles, within engineering reports, etc. So the question can be asked with regards to this presentation is why we're considering the Harvard reference style when generally within engineering context it's not used. And that's simply because within the syllabi we are currently considering, we're asked to use the Harvard style. And indeed, once you understand how one particular citation style is used, you essentially have underpinning knowledge to help you understand how other styles can be used. You just need to research the appropriate formatting requirements of other citation styles. Overview continued. So note, documents being written and the sources referenced therein can take the form of journal articles, theses, books, websites, etc. For example, if a journal article, I'm considering that the document being compiled, may have sources that include other journal articles, as well as books, reports, websites, etc. Or a thesis, sometimes also referred to as a dissertation, again the document being compiled, could have sources that include other theses, as well as journal articles, books, reports, websites, etc. Let's now consider in-text citations and reference lists. So these are the two forms of citation we're going to use within the documents we will compile. Both in-text citations and reference lists can be formatted to various bibliographic styles, but this presentation is all about using the Harvard style. So we're going to review in-text citations and reference lists in the Harvard style. So in-text citations, these are used when directly quoting or paraphrasing from an information source. They are located within the body of the document being produced and contain a fragment of the full citation that would be stated within the list of references. So I'm just showing a verbatim quote. This actually refers to the initial years of the ONC engineering qualification, dating back to 1920, and how the pass rates in these early years of the qualification were very poor. So the in-text citation here is Foden, that's the author, 1951 was the date of the article, and I've actually stated the page number of the article on which you can find this particular quote. Reference lists. These are located at the end of our respective document being written, and they display the full citations for all the sources used in the document. The actual format of the citation depends on the source type being referred to. So, for example, below is the Harvard format for a journal article. So Foden, that's the last name of the author, only one author in this particular case. F is the first initial of the author. 1951 is the year the article was published. National Certificate was the title of the article. The Journal of Vocational Education was the journal title. The number 3 shown here is actually the volume associated with this particular journal for this particular year, and the 6 in the bracket is actually the issue number of the volume of that particular year. The page numbers of this particular article in this issue are also stated. And you'll find within various reference lists, some sources do not have the volume, issue, and page numbers stated. Depends on the journal, the structure of its articles, and the information available. But that's a typical Harvard format for a journal article. Let's consider Harvard formatting of in-text citations. So here are some typical Harvard styles for in-text citations. So if the author's name is stated within the text, we follow this by stating the year in parentheses. So assuming this is an extract from a particular document, the extract might read, from an insightful study by Biggs, 2023, it was found that, etc. So in this case, Biggs is the author, and the author's name is cited in the text, so the year of publication is then in the parentheses. If the author's name is not stated in the text, then we insert the author's last name, comma, and a year in the parentheses. So again, an extract from a document might read, recent research, Biggs 2023, has considered. So here the author's name is not in the text, so the author's name and the year of publication is stated in the parentheses. Where appropriate, the page numbers can be stated and they follow the year, separated by a colon. So again, our extract from our document might read, it has been shown, Biggs 2023, 36 to 42, that, etc. And the 36 to 42 is actually the page number. From my perspective, when compiling documents, I always insert the page numbers within the citation, because then it helps me very quickly refer to the particular location where I've paraphrased or extracted a verbatim quote from my reference source. However, in formally published documents, we tendency to only insert page numbers where we have used in the text an actual verbatim quote from our reference source. Again, just to reiterate, different bibliographic packages, even though when choosing the Harvard style, do have subtly different formats. So just be aware of that and use what's appropriate for your particular document. Where there are two authors related to an information source, both names are stated but joined by an and. So for example, in the extract, it has been stated by Carter and Bathmaker, 2016, that assessment practice, etc. So here the authors are myself and my former supervisor, Professor Anne-Marie Bathmaker, and we are both stated as this was published as a joint research article. Where there are 4 or more authors to a particular information source, we use the Latin et al. Where et al is actually short for the Latin et alia, which means and others. So our extract could be educational researchers, Biggs et al., 2023, have suggested that, etc. Where the et al means and others. If more than one reference to the same author and year then we insert an A, B, etc. after the year in each of the citations, and this occurs in both the text and the list of references. So for example, an extract could be, this was highlighted as a problem by Biggs et al. 2023 B, pages 7 to 9, to research, etc. Or another example, this was emphasized by Jessup 1995 A, 1995 B, and needs attention, etc. So the A and the B would differentiate the two citations published by the same author in the same year. If a series of references are to be used, then we enclose the references in a single pair of parentheses in alphabetical order of the surnames, each separated by semicolons. So our extract here from our article might be various sources, Biggs et al. 2023, Connolly 2016, Jenkins and Jenkins 1998 have shown that. So in this case we have three sources that we're using here to justify a particular statement within our document. If two or more references by the same author are cited together, then we state these references commencing with the oldest publication and date separated with a comma. So here our extract might be several studies, Eccleston 2002, 2010, have shown that, etc. So in this case, Catherine Eccleston has two sources of information, one in 2002 and one in 2010. And it might be that this particular extract is trying to indicate that the same issues she raised in 2002 are still applicable in her 2010 work. If a source has an institutional authorship, then we state the institute as the author. So possible extract might read, various statistical data, Pearson 2022, clearly show that, etc. And here Pearson, so an awarding body in this particular case, is the institute. Here's a second example where the institutional authorship is actually the Department of Education. Notice the date and the page numbers are stated. Some sources can be authorless. In this case, we use the name of the journal, magazine, newspaper, or sponsoring organization, and not the article's title. So an extract could be, historically it was found, the Times Educational Supplement, 1978, that. So in this case the information source is authorless, so the citation states the newspaper supplement instead. So this is a situation where the actual author of this particular source is not identified. And sometimes we want to cite personal communications. This may be because the person that contacted you is particularly eminent in your field of study. So even though it's a personal communication, maybe a letter, a memo, email, if it's ethically okay to do so, you may want to refer to this within your document. So for example, it was suggested, Cockcroft 2006, personal communication, the standard of, etc. So Cockcroft is the name of the individual who sent this particular information, and this is the year it was received. Just note that sometimes personal communications are not included within reference lists. I must say, from my experience, I tendency to include them if they are particularly pertinent to the study I'm undertaking. And sometimes a reference source we refer to has no date. So when no date is included in a source, we simply omit that information from the in-text citation and from the list of references. So two examples shown here. First one, multiple semi-structured interviews were undertaken by Biggs, no date listed. And a second extract here, a near pass could be achieved at a pass mark of 13%, OCR, no date. So note in the first extract the author's name is stated, no date. In the second extract the institutional authorship is stated, it's an awarding body, and then the letters ND is stated to mean no date. So as I said previously, there can be subtle differences between different packages, even when both use the Harvard style. Let's consider Harvard formatting for citing sources in the list of references, usually positioned at the end of our documents. Let's consider in citing sources. So I'm going to show you a few illustrations of the Harvard citation style formats for a few types of common information sources we might want to reference in our documents. So let's consider in referencing books. The format is shown here. We have the last name of the author. First example here is Eccleston. And first initial, K for Catherine. The year the book was published, 2010. The title of the book, Transforming Formative Assessment into Lifelong Learning. The city where the book was published, in this case London. The publisher, Open University Press. And sometimes the pages used are also listed, but in this case no pages are stated for Eccleston's book. Below are three further books in the same format. So here are all the book illustrations to the referencing format shown above. Just note with this second book entry we have 4 authors, each author stated in terms of last name and then first initial. And this fourth book referenced has 2 authors, again last name and first initial. Something else to note is that with regards to year published, Eccleston's book has been stated with no parentheses, as is Gibbs' book, but notice this reference has stated the date in parentheses, and so has this reference. And again, this just highlights the subtle variations that can occur within various bibliographic packages, even when the Harvard citation style is selected. Let's consider referencing reports. Here's the Harvard format. So we have last name and first initial, or corporate author. There's a corporate author. Here's the actual author. The year published. The title. City published. The publisher. And then if required we have pages used, and they're not stated in any of these references. And also if an online source, we sometimes state the URL, which is the acronym for Uniform Resource Locator or web address. And if that is available, we would then state when it was accessed in terms of day, month and year. But that's only if a copy is online. Referencing journal articles, again is the format. So last name, first initial, the year published, article title, the journal in which the article was published, the volume of the journal for this particular year, the issue number if stated, no issue numbers are stated in these particular entries, and the page numbers, but the page numbers are stated for each of these journal articles. And referencing websites. Here's the Harvard format, last name, first initial, year published, page title, website name, URL, and date accessed. Note the format's slightly different when there is no author listed. The format becomes website name, year published, page title, URL, and date accessed. So I've just shown 2 illustrations below for your reference. So here are the 2 illustrations. And the final section of the presentation relates to Harvard formatting associated with citation examples from publications I've been involved with. just hopefully to give you practical illustrations of how we use Harvard referencing. Citation examples. So the paragraph below is a verbatim extract from a 1969 report stating one of the first definitions of technician engineers' employment characteristics. As this YouTube channel is primarily for technician engineers, I just thought you might be interested to see how a technician was defined in the 1960s. I'll let you read it at your own pace, but here's the in-text citation, Hazelgrave, 1969, page 3. So Hazelgrave is the author. This is actually a report. It was published in 1969, and this quote is stated on page 3. Again, notice a subtle difference in the way the page number is stated here compared to some of the previous illustrations we've seen. And this is how the source, is a report in this case, in-text citation here, would appear in the reference list at the rear of the document. So this is how the document would be stated in the list of references. Citation examples continued. And for your reference, here are the competencies of engineering technicians in 2020. The in-text citation here is from the Engineering Council, 2020, page 19. I'll let you read this at your own pace. This was actually an online document, electronic document. So this is the in-text citation, and this is how the online source would be stated in the list of references. In-text citation examples continued. This is an extract from my thesis. Here I've referred to Eccleston, 2002. She was a salient reference source for me at this particular time. I notice within this paragraph I've again referred to her source of 2002, but now stated the page number in the in-text reference. And again, related to the last sentence, I've stated the page number. I personally like to include page numbers within my in-text references, because one, it helps me to find the exact location of the quote or the information I'm using, and also for any researcher reading the article, it again allows them to find the direct location of the paraphrasing or the direct quote. Text citation examples continued. In this extract, I'm trying to show that two eminent researchers, Eccleston, 2001, and also Price, 2005, were drawing similar conclusions, so giving added justification for the conclusions drawn, that two researchers in different studies were finding the same conclusions. Notice the next in-text referencing has actually three authors for this particular study. The date of the study is included, but also the page number is added. Again, notice slightly different format to that we used previously. The page number has been added because a direct quote has been extracted from the article as shown here. This final in-text reference here is a study associated with two authors from 1994. Again, this is an extract from a peer-reviewed published article. In-text citation examples continued. Here a reference source by Harvey, Drew and Smith, three authors, 2006 have been referred to, and I referred to it again later in the paragraph. So again was an extract from a journal article. In-text citation examples continued. In this extract, notice I've referred to an institutional authorship at Excel here, and three of their publications from 2002, 2007, 2010, listed oldest to newest in line with the Harvard requirements. What I'm trying to show here is the longevity of a particular qualification to show that my research concerns spanned almost a decade of this qualification. A similar in-text reference here using two publications, again trying to show the longevity of the particular qualifications. Here's an in-text referencing for a journal article, a single author from 1951, and here's an in-text reference related to firstly a book published by Jehoda 1963, and a report by Sutherland and Posey, 1995. I'm just trying to inform the reader with these citations that BTEC qualifications, and indeed its predecessor qualifications, have formed an alternative route to undergraduate study for technician engineers over many decades, and indeed still does. Again, this is an extract from a journal article. In-text citation examples continued. In this particular paragraph, I actually have in-text citation for 6 sources shown here. What I'm trying to show here is that there's been a long-standing weakness in mathematical knowledge, understanding and application for technician engineers progressing to university. So I've got 6 studies that span 10 years, all indicating the same problem. So I'm clearly justifying this as a major issue for technician engineering students within this article. The next reference source is a single author, 1999, and the final reference shown here, 3 authors from 2013. Again, an extract from a journal article. In-text citation examples continued. Here's a slightly different illustration. The paragraph shown here commences with a source that actually has more than 4 authors, published in 2016, but I state that this 2016 publication cites another publication, single author here, from 1999. This is a situation where I did not have access to the 1999 publication, so I'm citing the 2016 publication, which contains the extract I require from the 1999 publication. This is referred to as secondary citing. We try to avoid secondary citing as much as possible, but there are occasions when we might need to. In-text citation examples continued. So here's another in-text citation, a single author for this particular article in 1983. The next citation is a dual author, 2003 article, page 34. Note the page number has been added because we've got a verbatim extract stated here. So we always state the page number when we use verbatim quote from our source. And notice at the end of the paragraph we have the word a bid, 38. A bid is a Latin abbreviation for obidium, which actually means in the same place, or in this context, in the same reference. So a bid here actually means in this last reference within the article, but now referring to page 38 of this article. Again, page number added because this is a direct quote from the source. Again, this was an extract from a published journal article. And here's another paragraph extracted from a journal article that again shows the use of a bid. Here's the previous reference a bid was referring to. In this case, it's actually a thesis, but note the same page number is stated in the second citation. And finally, here's an illustration where I cited 2 information sources by the same author from the same year. So my in-text citation here, Eccleston 2010A and Eccleston 2010B, and I've also stated the page numbers here. This is an extract from the list of references associated with this document, and you can see in the list of references, here's Eccleston 2010A. It was actually personal communication to me, and Eccleston K 2010B. This was actually a book that Eccleston published in that year. Again, an extract from my thesis. And here's the bibliography used, essentially the websites accessed to help generate this presentation. So that concludes the presentation. So I hope you're now good to go with regards to Harvard referencing. And as always, thank you for viewing.